The Principality of Monaco, in the simplest geography, a unique place. Small, self-sufficient little spot on the world map between France and Italy at the foot of the Southern Alps. Monaco is where Jacques Cousteau built his museum. It is where cherries Jubilee were first served as a breakfast dish. Under sovereign rule, Prince Rainier. Today, new buildings cover the mountains and the meadows. And it was here in Monte Carlo in April 14, 1929, the first automotive Grand Prix was run through the streets of a city. Since that time, the greatest in the game of automobile racing have jousted here. Millions from all walks and levels of life have come to watch. And today, as we come to Monte Carlo for the 36th running of the Monaco Grand Prix, an American, only the second one, is firmly in pursuit of the World Driving Championship. His name, from Nazareth, Pennsylvania, Mario Andretti. He is tied with Argentine Carlos Reutemann for the points lead. And today on ABC's Wide World of Sports, you will watch them square off.
Yes, I am. I did not hear your countdown. Yes, I do. But I didn't hear you when I was, while I was on. Whatever's happening to this sound system, exactly.
Like many places in the world, spring has been a little late in coming to the coastal area of southern France and to the Principality of Monaco, but it has not dampened nor cooled the enthusiasm of the motoring public as they've come by the thousands to grab their favorite viewing spot for the 36th running of the Grand Prix of Monaco, many of them moving to that location before dawn's earliest light. Surely the most expensive real estate in all the world would be one of the balconies overlooking this unique racecourse in the city of Monte Carlo. Hello, everybody. I'm Keith Jackson, along with Jackie Stewart for this 36th running of the Grand Prix of Monaco, a race won by Jackie Stewart 3 times. You know the course. You know what's demanded of a driver.
First of all, it really is the finest Grand Prix racetrack in the world. It's totally unique. It runs through the streets here of Monaco, and of course it's very tiring for the driver and for the car. For the driver, of course, with all the G-forces, left, right, braking, accelerating, very tiring indeed. And mechanically, well, for the transmissions particularly, it's almost exhausting for the car. I think from my point of view, it's the most glamorous, the most colourful, and most exciting sporting event in a calendar year. Everybody turns up here, Keith. The movie stars, the pop singers, just everybody, all the beautiful people, and it all adds up to being a great Monaco Grand Prix.
But associated with the bottom line of it this year is a growing tire war.
There is a tire war. Goodyear, who have had monopoly for many years in Grand Prix motor racing, completely dominated the sport, have a new competitor. A French company called Michelin have come in, and they are tiring Ferrari and Renault. And of course Ferrari are being very competitive here, and this could well be a great battle of the tires round the streets of Monaco.
There is some threat of rain, but so far we've not had any. There are 15 nationalities represented on the starting grid of 20 cars. Carlos Reutemann, an Argentine, sits on the pole. But right behind him to challenge him, tied in points with him at 18 for the World Driving Championship, an American, only the second American ever to challenge for this coveted title, Mario Andretti. As we look at Andretti, you can see a very light sprinkle of rain has just started to fall. Andretti having won at Argentina, third in Brazil, second at Long Beach for 18 points, driving a Colin Chapman Lotus car. He's a member of Team Lotus, his teammate being Ronnie Peterson. So, a short, strong, stocky fellow from Nazareth, Pennsylvania, would dearly love to grab a win here at Monaco today to continue his march along toward the one prize in motor racing that he so covets, to go with his Indy Championship and the other trophies that sit at his home. Inside, Niki Lauda driving car number 1. Niki from Austria. defending world driving champion. He is in one of the two Brabhams that sit right up front. He is inside on the second row, Nicky Lauda. Outside on the first row, and from Ireland, John Watson, who in the final qualifying session was able to grab the front row position. Watson in a Brabham, and number 11 is the man we've talked so much about, Carlos Reutemann. He is tied with Mario Andretti with 18 points, topping the drivers. Might note that the defending champion, Jody Scheckter of South Africa, in a Wolf Ford, is back inside on row 5. The first 10 qualifiers all broke a minute and a half in qualifying on the 2.06 mile course. So it's a very fast field, and some big names are back in the pack. Prince Renier and Princess Grace in the royal box at the start-finish line, secure from the weather with their guests. And now we are ready for the warm-up lap. And while the cars pull away for the warm-up lap, let's have a tour of this circuit with Jackie Stewart.
The complexity of this Grand Prix circuit of Monaco can be seen in this plan. With 18 corners around the circuit, you start at the start-finishing line and go towards Saint-Devote corner. Up here from Saint-Devote, you go up the hill, getting up to speeds of about 135 miles an hour before a long left-hander around the Hotel de Paris, round to the Casino Square and down to the Mirabeau, a place where there is an opportunity of passing perhaps. Then you go down to the new Lowe's Hotel corner, only down to about 25-30 miles an hour, accelerate down to the Mediterranean. And as here you go into the long tunnel. It's much extended today from when it was in 1929. Then you go down again to 140 miles an hour through the chicane, a quick flick left to right. And then you go to the Debacanus corner, then towards the swimming pool. Several corners there, 4 of them taken individually, and towards the Rascasse, a restaurant today. Go up to the Gassonet and go back. Now let's have a look. When I drove round this Grand Prix circuit just a few days ago in a Formula 1 car. We go towards Saint-Devote. You brake heavily. As you approach Saint-Devote behind another car, you slip it into second gear. It's here on the first lap, it's going to be very busy. Second gear corner, as you prepare the car to go up the hill, almost thread the needle through a series of curves. Keeping close behind another car, there is no opportunity to pass. But when you get to the top of the hill, you go through a long left-hand corner of the Hotel de Paris. You can sometimes slip beneath a car there between the barriers. You've got to be very accurate as they enter the Place de Casino. Through the right-hander, the car slightly takes off over a hill there as you go towards the Mirabeau. You brake on a manhole cover. You then slip it into second gear. Accelerate down towards the slowest part of the circuit, down to the lowest hotel of the station hairpin as it used to be. In first gear you go round here. Accelerate again, slip it into second gear, through the right-hander, and then you go to the Portier, where you come on to the Mediterranean. Second gear corner as you accelerate hard into the tunnel. A strange contrast of light. If there's oil on the racetrack, you really can't see it at all, although of course it's electrically illuminated. A nice contrast as you come out into the light again, 140 miles an hour towards the chicane. A quick flick, left to right. So here Bandini had an accident in 67. Then you go towards the old Tobacconist corner. Again, accelerating in third gear towards the swimming pool. Left hand, wall on the left, barrier on the right. You brake again on the manhole cover, slip it into second gear. Again, you go through the left-hander and head towards Rascasse, up into third gear, and then you brake hard to almost the slowest part of the circuit, the Rascasse. You go into first gear as you go round here. Again, the barriers, you can't afford to kiss any of them. As you go up to the old Gassonet corner, the Gassonet is no longer there as you accelerate past the pits where you get your signal, and back to the start-finishing line for the end of another lap.
The warm-up lap has been completed now. The roar begins to grow. Watch for the green lights in the right-hand upper corner of your screen. The car's creeping ever so slightly, and we're off. It is very important to see which man gets in front as Lauda makes a bold move to come up on the outside. And it is Lauda right there as they really jump up on the first turn.
And James Hunt collides with the barrier in the first time. As there you go, you see going up the hill there, tremendous bunch of cars, and Reutemann made a very poor start. John Watson is in the lead as they go up this. This is a dramatic start, and there is James Hunt, whose car's badly damaged when he hit the barrier. As they go through.
Another one who made a bold move out of the pack.
So it's John Watson leading the cars through Mirabeau in this first lap, followed by Patrick Depailler in the tail, and then Nicky Lauda following that with Mario Andretti on his tail. An open field going through the hairpin on this first lap.
It appeared that Reutemann just did not get on it, being so careful not to spin the wheels and burn rubber as they head now for the tunnel. And Lauda tried to duck outside of him and get the lead, but Watson beat him to it. And then Depailler boldly came from the outside. Hunt jammed up the crowd when he hit the barrier, and Mario Andretti came off that first Sandoval turn at about number 5 position. And so right now, we'll have a look at John Watson and Depailler as they come working around toward the end of lap number 1.
John Watson, very talented Irish driver, a man who's had great promise, has always seemed to be a bridesmaid, has only won one Grand Prix in his career, that being the Austrian Grand Prix. Patrick Depailler has never won a Grand Prix before. He seems always to be the unlucky one. There you see Lauda and Mario Andretti closely following him. And then you see Jody Scheckter, who's come from the 5th row of the starting grid to be in a very good position at the end of this first lap.
Jackie Carlos Reutemann has ducked into the pits very quickly. So he is in the pits. Let's have a look at Hunt's trouble.
James Hunt came from the right-hand side and slammed into the barrier there. Rain comes off from the car, very badly damaged. We'll be back to Monaco in a few moments.
The leader continues to be John Watson of Ireland, with Mario Andretti running in the number 4 spot, closely pursued by Jody Scheckter in car number 20. That's Andretti there in 5, and Scheckter running right behind him. A couple of times it appeared that Jody Scheckter might like to take a run at Mario, but this is a very, very difficult race course on which to pass. Each driver probably has his own favorite place to try to effect a pass. Carlos Reutemann, incidentally, has returned to the racetrack. He is running well. Alan Jones is billowing a lot of smoke out of his car, so he may be in some trouble because of an oil leak. But the most entertaining joust right now on the course belongs to Mario Andretti, coming at you right there, and the man right behind him, Jody Scheckter. Scheckter, of course, the defending champion from South Africa, and no longer the wild, untamed fellow that he once was considered to be in Formula One racing. Now driving very disciplined manner and driving most effectively.
Going to a part of the racetrack that's very difficult to pass on, but a place that he seems to have the slight edge on the Andretti car as he goes right into this old station hairpin. The Lowe's Hotel it is now, and there they accelerate down towards the Portier in the Mediterranean. Mario Andretti is never an easy man to pass, and when it comes to Monte Carlo, it's almost impossible to pass unless somebody makes a major error in front of you.
Slipping through the tunnel for the first time, we're able to get an electronic picture from the tunnel. Quite a change, however, for the driver as he comes out of the darkness of the tunnel, slashing into the daylight. And it's Andretti, still running in the number 4 spot, still being pursued by Jody Scheckter. The top 3 are Watson, Depailler, and Lauda. And then we come to number 5 and number 20. And running right behind number 20 in car number 6, also in a position to make some noise, would be Ronnie Peterson driving the other Lotus. Now let's find out, if we can, from another 3-time winner of this Grand Prix of Monaco, Sterling Moss, as to what happened to Carlos Reutemann right off the start of the race.
Well, thank you very much, Keith. I'm here in the pits, and there's really a tremendous amount of action. Carlos Reutemann, as you may know, came in here because he had a rear tire going flat. I went and asked what it was, and apparently he touched the side somewhere and felt that it was going down, and he came straight in. He's rejoined the circuit. Just before him, we had James Hunt come in. Now, James had a flat tire because at the very start, just after they dropped the flag, he went into the chicane, the first chicane head on, buckled the front of his car, so he came in. They changed and put a new nose on the car, new tyres on, and off he's gone, and hopefully that'll be okay. Although I must admit it did look to me a little bit more serious with just a flat tyre.
All right, Sterling, thank you very much. And I would not guess that Reutemann nor Hunt will be a factor in this race anymore, because this is a non-stop race for the winner. The car's carrying some 36 to 40 gallons of fuel. And if you're going to win this one, you do not stop unless, of course, rain comes. And so far, the rain has not been a factor, though we had a slight sprinkle early on.
Certainly weather conditions look better now than they did at the start of the race, and unless it does rain, I can't see this race pattern changing in any way for Carlos Reutemann. He isn't drawing out in any way from John Watson. He's ahead of John Watson on the track, although of course John Watson is our leader. And there you see Mario Andretti going through the Gasomet chicane as before they go on to the pit straight, where they're getting up to third to fourth and sometimes the fifth gear as they go past their signalling pit.
And he is still being tightly pursued by Jody Scheckter as they joust for positions 4 and 5. We'll be right back. The leader of this 36th running of the Grand Prix of Monaco is John Watson of Ireland. Patrick Depailler of France has moved right in behind him. Depailler in a Terrell and Watson in a Brabham, and they have put quite a bit of distance on the third place car, Niki Lauda. Number 4 is Depailler, the white car. Number 2 is Watson, and Depailler now is in a position to exercise opportunity if it should suddenly crop up in front of it.
Patrick Depailler has always been a good street racer. He goes well here in Monaco. He's gone well in the Long Beach racetrack, and you can see how close he is right now as they start to go up the hill there. He's tucking in behind John Watson. There's no opportunity to pass here, unfortunately, unless John Watson does make a mistake, though, Keith.
Let's pursue that subject, Jackie. We talked to some of the drivers about their favorite passing spot, if and where there is one. Here's some of the answers.
There's only one place that I can see where you could attempt it is going into this Thunderbolt chicane. That's the only place where you could try to do it. The rest, the man has to make a terrible mistake.
I think it's very difficult to overtake. The men who start in the lead have a better chance to starting in the back, and it's not too much room to overtake. I think the only one place is the pit.
There are places if the guy makes a mistake. And maybe if the casino going down to the right-hander, if he doesn't expect it to pass, he's trying to stay on the left to get his line.
The Mirabeau.
The Mirabeau, and he just, coming inside, but it's a risky place to pass. And that's about it, because coming back out of the tunnel in front of the chicane, I wouldn't pass anybody, because it's fourth gear, and you don't brake enough to get next to him. And if you are next to him, the line into the chicane is wrong, so you can't, no way you pass anybody there. So I think the only place really is into Mirabeau.
The words of Niki Lauda and the other drivers about getting past round this tight Monaco circuit, and you can see the trouble that they were speaking of. You can see John Watson, then Patrick Depailler, then Niki Lauda himself as they come up the hill there, only looking for an error of judgment by one of those drivers to change the complete look of this Monaco Grand Prix. John Watson under a considerable amount of pressure from Patrick Depailler, who in his own way is sandwiched in there with Niki Lauda breathing down his neck.
The pressure is now on Depailler as Lauda has moved closer, I think, than any time during the course of the race. So the defending world driving champion figures to himself be involved in making a move before this is done. Grand Prix racing is made up of a lot of little bitty things, little guesses, little pieces of judgment. The Brabham and Terrell teams deciding to go with soft compound tires on the right, hard compound tires on the left. It is Brabham and Terrell involved right here in the fight for first place in the Grand Prix of Monaco.
Tactics have a lot to do with Grand Prix motor racing, as you've pointed out, and this tyre war certainly seems to be being won at the present time by Goodyear, because the Michelin entries are well behind. These three runners there wearing the softer compound in the inside, the tyres that are not loaded because there are more right-hand corners than left-hand corners, but they seem to be all handling very well. The big thing at Monaco is they are in such close company at this time, and particularly you see this in the slower parts of the circuit, is not to get so close that if somebody makes a slight error that you run into them in the back. And we could perhaps look for this as they go round the slower part of the circuit, perhaps down towards Lowe's Hotel. As they come through the fast section of the track, they've got to be far enough behind so that their aerofoils still work and give them the sort of downforce that the cars need. But let's look at this part of the circuit right here, Keith. Look how Depailler gets close, and so also does Lauda. Now, when they go into the braking distance here, Depailler has got to be very careful that he doesn't get too close, or he gets his aerofoils clipped by the rear wheel of the car of John Watson. Very delicate area.
We'll be back with more. When you cover the Grand Prix of Monaco, you must also deal with many other elements, because this is a very special place for a sports event. Let's have a look about this area, and let's begin at the Palace with Jackie Stewart.
High in the cliffs above the natural harbour lies the Palace of Monaco, home of their Serene Highnesses Prince Rainier III and Princess Grace, and their family, Prince Albert, Princess Caroline, and Princess Stephanie. The foundations of the palace were laid in 1215. It was built as a natural fortress. I'm standing in the great courtyard within the walls of the palace. Behind me, a 17th century marble staircase, a copy of the Fontainebleau Palace that was built, of course, 17th century. As we look up here, we see the Hercules Gallery, the beautiful murals, and you can see the enormous amount of restoration work that's taking place here. When Prince Rainier took over the sovereignty of Monaco, he's been doing enormous work ever since restoring the palace. Further over to the right, the chapel. And it's in that chapel, in only a few weeks' time, that Princess Caroline will be married. Now let's have a look inside the palace itself. The heart of the interior of the palace is undoubtedly the throne room. This room nowadays is used for banquets and official functions. And it was in front of this throne that in 1962 Prince Rainier proclaimed the new constitution for Monaco. And it was in this very spot that in 1956 Prince Rainier and Princess Grace were married. Adorning the walls, we have paintings of Prince Rainier's family and forebearers. In 1949, when Prince Rainier's grandfather, Prince Louis II, died, Prince Rainier's mother, Princess Charlotte, abdicated in favor of Prince Rainier. Next door to the throne room is the Blue Room, perhaps the most beautiful of all rooms in the palace. It's still used today for official functions and receptions. The unusual dark blue and silver brocade was specially made in Lyon, France, when Prince Rainier renovated this particular room. It's a reproduction of the 17th century design that was originally in this very room. Two of the most beautiful rooms in the palace, the throne room and the Blue Room. From the palace looking across the harbour, another landmark in Monaco, the Hotel de Paris, one of the truly great hotels in the world, probably the nerve centre of the social scene here in the Grand Prix weekend. In this suite, I've lived for every Grand Prix since 1965, just for the weekend, of course, in this very room. And in fact, 3 times I've walked down the track to win the Monaco Grand Prix. As I look out of my suite, I look down to an armada of yachts and boats carrying the flags of almost every seafaring nation. And of course, the pièce de résistance is the yacht of Stavros Niarchos. Magnificent. 12 double guest rooms on it, each of them named after a great artist, Van Gogh or Renoir, even Andy Warhol, an original in each of the suites. Truly an opulent Monaco. The imposing structure of the Hotel de Paris, and right next door to it, the casino, which in 1858 was originally built as a concert hall and then converted to the casino it is today. The chandeliers in this private gaming room. Perhaps in this very room, the man broke the bank of Monte Carlo. Monaco, a sharp contrast and a unique marriage of the old and the new, because this is the new luxury hotel of Lowe's, and in this, a casino also, perhaps more in the mood of Las Vegas. Monaco, a truly modern place, a feel, a look, and all the senses of a great occasion.
Hurtling down out of the tunnel on the fastest part of the racetrack, number 4, Patrick Depailler has gone into the lead. The information is that John Watson missed the chicane, and he has dropped well back and out of sight. It is now Patrick Depailler in number 4, the blue and white car, running in first place with Niki Lauda. There in the red and black car, number 1, running in second place. And they are very close, and right in front of them is one of the Ferraris, causing a little bit trouble, the one being driven by Carlos Reutemann that pitted earlier. But your leader now is Patrick Depailler of France.
Driving now a very clean race. Just as we were forecasting, the thing is not to make any errors of judgment, and this is what obviously John Watson must have done. He must have left his braking a little bit late going into the chicane. He overshot the chicane, and by so doing had to wait until the other cars had passed before going out the escape road. The blue flag there as they went up the hill being waved to Carlos Reutemann, who's almost a lap behind. And there you see Patrick Depailler in the top left-hand side of your picture, the young French driver, very talented, has never won a Grand Prix. This could easily be his first, and what a one to win. The most glamorous Grand Prix of all, the Monaco Grand Prix. But Niki Lauda is certainly not giving him any chance to breathe.
The venerable Austrian is very much in evidence right here. And remember that he has shown already, as had John Watson previously, that Alfa Romeo 12-cylinder engine may have a little more sock on the fast part of the racetrack. Add that to the cunning of Niki Lauda, and you just can't concede anything to Depailler at this point.
Depailler's car being driven by the Ford V8 engine, very successful at this race last year when Jody Scheckter won the race. It was celebrating the 100th victory of a Ford engine in Grand Prix racing. The car is very reliable, and therefore the Alfa Romeo has not enjoyed the same reliability over the years. The 12-cylinder, a little more powerful, a little more flexible, but also perhaps a little more brittle.
So the contest is now between Depailler of France and Lauda of Austria. Depailler, one of 6 Frenchmen making the starting grid for the Monaco Grand Prix. Out of 15 nationalities represented on that starting grid, 6 of them were Frenchmen.
As they come up the hill there, they're stuck behind car number 11, Carlos Reutemann, who sat on the pole but who had a tyre problem earlier on, had to go into the pit, and undoubtedly he's in some way holding up Patrick Depailler, because although Depailler is not that close to him, the aerodynamics of the car is definitely being disturbed by the fact of a car being ahead of him. The blue flag is certainly being waved ardently at Carlos Reutemann. Reutemann does not want to be lapped, does not want to move over, and certainly this could be an embarrassment to the 2 cars behind.
John Watson is holding on to the number 3 position as they continue to point that blue flag at Reutemann, with Mario Andretti running about 15 seconds in 4th place off the pace of the leaders, and Jody Scheckter running in the 5th spot, still right behind Andretti. So the leader is Patrick Depailler of France, with Niki Lauda of Austria running right behind him. And we'll have more after this. Niki Lauda slowing down, it appears, as Depailler has pulled away to a considerable lead, both of them having moved past Carlos Reutemann after waving the flag for quite a while at Reutemann. But now Lauda has almost lost sight of the Tyrrell.
Lauda is obviously having a mechanical problem, and there you see John Watson, who's in 3rd position now. He will undoubtedly close up, but there is your leader, who's taken an enormous margin just within this 1 lap. We'll be back for more in the Monaco Grand Prix in a little while.
Andretti has dropped out of the race. He is no longer a factor. Whether he will run anymore or not, we don't know. That is a prolonged pit stop. It is the second pit stop that he has made. The car has not been healthy for quite some time. He has really never since early on in the race been a factor, as he has consistently lost time and distance to the leaders, and right now he sits dejectedly in the pits. The leader is Patrick Depailler of France, and never having claimed a Grand Prix prize for his trophy shelf, must be feeling terrible. He must be feeling, actually, Jackie, where did everybody go?
Well, he must be sitting there hoping that whatever's happened to everybody else is not going to happen to him, because, of course, when you're leading a motor race, particularly somewhere like Monaco, you're really frightened to think the good things of life. You're frightened to think that you, in fact, are leading a Grand Prix of this kind. And Patrick Depailler, particularly because he's never won a Grand Prix. I can remember the first Grand Prix I led, which in fact was this very Grand Prix here in 1965. I was leading the race, Keith, and I made a little error of judgment at the Saint-Deveau corner, the corner that Patrick Depailler is heading for now. I spun off and lost my lead. This kind of thing can happen. But there's John Watson, who was in position to win this race, was leading the race earlier. He had a problem. He went straight on at the chicane. He ran into a problem and had to go down the escape road and therefore dropped right back.
So it is Depailler-Watson running 1-2. Mario Andretti is still sitting dejectedly in the pits. Colin Chapman, the boss of the Team Lotus, earlier this year in Spain, had some comments about this man, Mario Andretti, and another great racing driver, Jimmy Clark.
If you go back to the middle 60s and you see the sort of car that Jim Clark drove and made his name, you can see that it is really a much more simple, much more basic machine than the things we're running today. Jimmy, of course, had a tremendous mechanical flair anyway, coupled to his enormous ability and his application. And I think he would have been one of the few of the yesteryear drivers who would have adopted Mario is very, very much in the Jim Clark mould, and I feel that he's carrying on today with this general knowledge that Jimmy would have had. Frequently I get asked the similarities between Jim Clark as a race driver in his heyday 10 years ago and Mario today at the peak of his form. And I think it's probably smoothness. I think that both drivers are extremely sensitive, gentle, smooth men, and they manage to coax the very utmost out of their cars. There's no room for harsh handling or rough treatment or aggressive punishment on the car itself. Jimmy could do a race using less rubber and less brakes and less fuel than any other driver in his day, and Mario is the same. When he comes in, his tyres are not so hot, his engine is not over-revved, his brakes are not smoking. He's a very gentle and a very smooth driver, and this is what it takes to do well.
Patrick Depailler continues to lead, but let's finish the story of Mario Andretti, whose chances of winning anything at the Monaco Grand Prix have now dissipated. They are gone. Sterling Moss can fill us in from the pits.
Well, thank you, Keith. Unfortunately, poor old Mario's had two stops. The first stop was because his fuel gauge split and spurted fuel all over him. They put that right, which took a fair time. Then he came in. The last stop was caused because the throttle linkage broke and part of the metering device fell out. Well, he's back in the race again. So back to you, Keith.
Another bad piece of luck for Team Lotus. Ronnie Peterson getting out of the cockpit. The day is done for him. Well, we've got a moment, Jackie. Let's talk about next Saturday's ABC's Wide World of Sports, where you and some 300,000 people all go to Indianapolis.
Well, I'll be in India, of course. It's the first weekend of qualifying. Of course, that's when the pole will be gotten, and I think we may see a speed of more than 200 miles an hour, Keith, in qualifying. Quite a day and something to look forward to.
I'll be in Belgrade, Yugoslavia for the other part of next Saturday's ABC's Wide World of Sports as we continue our coverage of the World Amateur Boxing Championships. That's at 5 Eastern and Pacific, 4 Central Time. Patrick Depailler continues to run away and hide with the Monaco Grand Prix. He goes into this race, remember, with 14 points, tied for second place. A victory could be worth 9 points. That would give him 23 and the lead in the World Driving Championship point standings. John Watson continues to run in second place. But who knows what waits around the next turn, because Lady Fate has been very fickle here in Monte Carlo this afternoon. We'll have more in a moment.